One of the interesting challenges of 21st century classrooms is managing how work is submitted. How do we get our work to the teachers? And how do they mark that work, given that it may have to be sent via email or uploaded to a server? Microsoft OneNote allows us to save notebooks onto server spaces or in the cloud using services like SkyDrive or even SharePoint. One of the things that we're seeing in more and more schools is making collaborative use of OneNote notebooks to share resources between teachers and students. So here's one possible setup we've seen schools use. A teacher may create a notebook with read and write access, but they will place that notebook on the network. So let's say this is a maths teacher. The maths teacher will have a maths master notebook, including their curriculum, stored in a notebook. They would save this master notebook onto the school's network in a place where they and perhaps other teachers would be able to edit it and build curriculum. It's important to note that the teacher has read and write access to that notebook because they need to create curriculum. However, the teacher also puts it in a place which ensures the students have read-only access. That means that students can view the entire curriculum the teacher has created, but they can't change any of that curriculum. They can't edit it, for example. They are, however, able to copy items out of that notebook if they need to. In addition to read-only access to the master notebook, students have their own notebook for mathematics. This one here might be James's notebook, and this one might be Kelly's notebook, and this one might be Tim, and this one might be Jessica. Each of these notebooks allow read and write access, but only for the owner of the notebook. Students wouldn't have read and write access to anyone else's notebook. So that means that James isn't going to be able to open Kelly's notebook and Kelly isn't going to be able to access Tim's. There's no way that they can access each other's notebooks. The workflow for a student, let's say James, is that he would open his own maths workbook in OneNote and he would also open the teacher's master notebook. So James now has two maths notebooks open. This allows him to see the teacher's master curriculum files, which the teacher would add to as the course progresses, and his own private workbook that he could work in. In other words, what this is really creating for teachers is a seamless way to deliver curriculum to their students. If a teacher is at home and creates a new page, they can put it into the master. This might be a new piece of curriculum. It would go into the master notebook because the teacher knows that all the students have that open and they would be able to read it but not edit it. Then when the teacher comes into the classroom and asks James and Kelly and Tim and Jessica to get that piece of curriculum, each individual student would just copy and paste it into their workbook. So they copy and paste the new material across into their workbook. Once that piece of work is copied into their own individual workbook, they are able to edit it and do the mathematics work that is required because they have read and write access. To provide feedback, teachers can open up the student workbooks. The best way to do this is have all your students' workbooks open, in this case James and Kelly and Tim and Jessica. This means as soon as James does any work on his page, you, the teacher, will also be able to see it in his workbook. So let's say this is the teacher's OneNote layout, with the colour tabs across the top. As you can see, the teacher would have the master open here, and then they would have James's workbook open, as well as Kelly's and Tim's and Jessica's. And even if the teacher was at home and wanted to check some of James's work, they just click here to open it up. From there, they could annotate on his notebook pages using the pen tool. They can insert an audio file if they wanted to give some spoken feedback, or even record a video file if they wanted to relay feedback that way. This idea of using notebooks for powerful collaboration is an amazing way that Microsoft OneNote can be used in schools.